What's up, fellow Tacoma drivers? I'm Sean at Shock Surplus. That's my Tacoma, and today we're going to be going over the buyer's guide for high performance shock absorbers. This is the gamut of what most people are looking at when they're thinking about upgrading their shocks and their coilovers on their Tacoma. We've got Icon vehicle dynamics, we got Fox 2.5s, we got Fox 2.0s, we got Bilstein 6112s, we got the King 2.5s, Old Man Emu's new BP51 internal bypass, and we got Bilstein's new 8112 zone control adjustable height coilovers. All of these are the top of the line shocks for your Tacoma. We have a general's buyer's guide on our website that you can check out if you're looking just for stock replacement and nothing fancy. But today we'll be getting into the best of the best. Before I go on, the purpose of this guide is to give you the most information possible on these individual shocks. We know that the manufacturer puts out their general descriptions, and what happens is a lot of it's marketing language that we don't understand, or it gets confusing and you don't know who to trust. We've ran most of these shocks on our own Tacomas. We've got my Tacoma here that's seen Bilstein, Fox, and now Icon, and we have Jeff's Tacoma, which has seen Bilstein, Icon, and now Fox. So we are looking at this from an experiential level and our own feedback, changing a lot of things on our own vehicles. This is a lot of what we're going to go over today isn't a universal statement for every Tacoma. Not everyone's going to be running 600 pounds in the back of their Taco. Not everyone has 33-inch tires. Some of you got 35. Some of you are just on 31s. All of these things make a big difference on ride quality, how the vehicle handles, and a lot of it also makes a difference into what you should consider in a shock. We'll tell you what's overkill for your driving type and what's not overkill. So we'll be diving into all the details here regarding these options. We're going to do our best to be unbiased here. Since we've ran these shocks one after another on our own vehicle, our own vehicles have changed. A lot of sellers out there are only selling Fox and Bilstein, or Fox and King, or Bilstein and Old Man Emu, so we're selling everything here. That's because we want people to not overspend for their needs. We want them to get into the exact shocks they need for their vehicle. That's in both ride quality, longevity. So we'll be going over all of that here for these specific setups. Starting from over here, these are the Icon 2.5 coilovers. Now these are the non-reservoir options. I have the reservoir CDC V option on my truck, front and rear. Here, the biggest difference in Icon's coilovers are their digressive valving that they kind of lean their shocks towards. It is not typically a full digressive valving on these shocks. Icon doesn't give away the secrets to what they're doing, but for the most part, they have a digressive nature to handle washboard roads, the minor irregularities in the dirt, but also to improve handling on the street. So that usually means less body roll, less nose dive, those kind of behaviors on the street they want to address, but also giving good feedback in the dirt without rattling your teeth out. On the CDC valve options, which are running on my truck right now, you have the adjustment of compression, which basically translates to how the shock is responding in those steering inputs and in the terrain inputs. So similar to the King adjustment and the Fox adjustment, what happens is as you turn those valve, the compression adjustment up or down, that controls whether the shock responds softly or whether it responds very firm. Usually when I'm off-road and going fast, that's between 30 and 50 miles an hour fast, I have the shocks turned way up because unpredictable terrain means that you're going to get full compression action in the front and rear. So you want to maintain traction and control. For all of these shocks, The main purpose is to keep your tires on the ground. The main purpose isn't to float along on whatever terrain you're on. No, it's traction. Keep that in mind as we speak about control, handling feedback, road feedback. When you get into options like the Fox 2.5 and the Old Man Yumu BP51s, then you're talking about the best of both worlds. These Icon 2.5s are really good as a entry-level off-road upgrade. These 2.5s will both improve the ride on the highway in terms of comfort and handling especially, but they'll also be able to improve off-road capability. What we mean by that is when you're going fast, these shocks actually feel softer than when you're going slow. And that's because through the shim stacks and the valving, through the mid ranges of the shock, and when that's being used at speed is when the best and smoothest dampening happens within the shock. So it might seem counterintuitive that the faster you go, the smoother it feels, but that's exactly what a lot of these high-performance shock absorbers have in common. On the CDC valve setup, those shocks are really good for when you're have varying loads in the back, have varying loads in the front, or if you just want the most control possible out of your shock absorbers, whether that's on road, on the highway, on the street, long road trips. You're able to really dial in how the shocks and how your overall ride feels as you're changing terrains. These are the Fox 2.5 with DSC adjustment. Now DSC stands for dual speed adjustment, and these are one of the best shocks on this table right now because no one else has the dual speed adjustment like Fox does. Now, when you're talking about low speed adjustment, you are talking about low speed inputs, and by that we mean low speed on the shock travel. So we're talking about washboard, we're talking about street and highway driving. Those are all kind of low speed inputs. So if you make that soft, then you're going to have a lot more body roll. You'll be able to eat up the washboards a lot easier though. If you make that low speed firmer, you'll have less body roll, but that washboard, you're going to feel a lot more of it because it's going to be a firmer response from the shock. For the high-speed adjustment, this matters most for high-speed actions, which maximize the travel within the shock. As you're going through the whoops, as you go through pretty fast and unpredictable terrain, we've all had it where you just nosedive into the dirt or coming off of a berm or coming out of a wash and you unexpectedly nail your skid plate, or you unexpectedly go up over and your tires leave the ground. These are high-speed actions that fully compress the shock. On the softest setting, the shock is going to allow that to happen. On the highest, firmer setting, the shock is going to kick back or prevent that full compression to the best of its ability. So typically when we're running pretty fast off-road, we have the settings turned way up because we don't care about the ride quality at that point. We care about our own safety of the driver and the passenger. We care about the traction. We care about full control of the vehicle. So that's when you really turn those settings way up to have the best response, keep the tire on the ground, eat up the max and the big obstacles. These shocks are really the best for rigs that see a lot of off-road driving, who are doing a lot of road trips, or who also just want the maximum amount of comfort and off-road capability all in a single package. They're one of the more expensive options available, so that's one of the only cons to this setup. But in our opinion, the Fox DSC is one of the best bang for buck Tacoma upgrades in general, let alone shock absorber. The Fox 2.0 is an excellent first upgrade for drivers that don't know how much dirt they're going to be seeing, but they do a lot of camping, a lot of just wheeling on the weekends, and also as the first upgrade over stock, these coilovers will give you 2 inches of lift right out of the box for most Tacomas. I really enjoyed having these on my truck for about 30 to 40,000 miles, They rode very nice with an upgraded bumper that's about 100 pounds overweight, or over factory weight, which meant that these coil springs reacted a lot more soft on the highway. So it was a pretty good ride. Typically what you hear from a Fox 2.0 customer right off the bat is that it is firmer than factory. Don't let people persuade you that the Fox 2.0 is a smooth riding shock. These are firmer than stock, most definitely. Fox tunes these so that the middle travel range of the shock is where it's softest, and the beginning ranges is to provide better handling in the washboard or in street driving or highway driving. These Fox 2.0 coilovers retail for about $1,000 a pair. So keep that in mind when you're considering some of these other options, like the Icon 2.5s are probably about $1,100 for a pair. The Bilstein 6112s are much less at about $750 for a pair. Keep that in mind as a 2-inch shock versus a 2.5-inch shock. While these are great right out of the box for a lot of people, other manufacturers are catching up in their offerings for similar prices. One of the other good things about all of these is that they're all rebuildable, including the 2.0. And what that means is after 40,000 miles, 50,000 miles, they can be sent into Fox, sent into us to have them serviced and refreshed like brand new. What that means is refilling the nitrogen gas charge, replacing the shock oil within it, and replacing all the seals within the shock to basically make it operate like new. At that point, you can also retune the shock so that it responds either firmer than what you want or softer than what you want, and that is going to basically be determined by your wheels and tire combination or your bumper and winch setup on your Tacoma. A lot of you guys are running all of these additional accessories, different wheel and tire sizes. All of this really makes a difference into how the coil springs react and how the shock reacts. The Bilstein 6112 right here is one of our favorite shocks that have come out in the past couple of years. The biggest difference between this and the rest of these is that it does not come as fully assembled how we have it here. This is an extra top hat that we include with our assemblies. This shock comes with the main shock and the coil springs. The other major difference here is that there is no threaded body here to control ride height. The Fox 2.0 has a threaded body, the Fox 2.5 has a threaded body, and the Icon 2.5 has a threaded body. All the rest of these have threaded bodies too. What that means is you compress this coil spring, any of these coil springs, and the threaded bodies mean how much preload you're going to have on this coil spring. The Bilstein is set prior to installation here, and these 6112s have anywhere between 5 and 7 different settings for height adjustment, which typically range from factory height all the way up to 2 inches, 2.5 inches, 2 3/4, all really depending on your application. For this Tacoma, the max height is 2.5. The other really good thing about this is their 60 millimeter piston within the shock, which is basically a 2.5 inch piston. That's incredible when you consider that this Old Man Emu BP51 is only a 2-inch piston, or this Fox 2.0 is even smaller than that. Now, regarding pricing, the 6112 is about $750 for a pair. The Fox 2.0 is about $950. Now, comparing these side by side is one of our favorite things to do because we think that this 6112 will provide a much better ride for 95% of Tacoma drivers out there. Bilstein typically valves their shocks to give both a really good on-road, on-pavement, street handling characteristic with some off-road capabilities. They've really stepped up their game with the off-roading community by offering this 2.5-inch shock for the Tacoma, the Tundras, 4Runners, F-150s, Silverados, all the late model strut-equipped trucks. We really think this is the best bang for buck. It's not overkill for anyone. It is one of our most recommended upgrades over a factory-equipped truck. This shock is really good for daily drivers, but also weekend warriors. This can really address the best of both worlds. Most people that are upgrading their vehicle are going camping once, twice, 3 times a month, seeing the dirt a couple times a month, and don't really need a very high performance option when there's blasting through the desert or blasting the mountains. This is going to address most of your concerns. You can be upgraded with a 650 pound spring or a 700 pound spring, depending on how much weight you have in the front. These are also serviceable, which is kind of a new thing for Bilstein, since their 5100 series is not serviceable. This is definitely not overkill for anyone. It is at a price point that makes it almost a no-brainer when you consider the other 2.0 options out there. We recommend this over the Fox 2.0. We recommend this over any Toyotech 2.0. Basically any other 2.0 shock out there, you should definitely step into something like this if you want longevity and if you want performance in most of your driving situations. King is really known for providing excellent ride comfort on the highway, on the pavement, while also giving ample dampening in the dirt, off-road, and also taking the hard hits. That's essentially what most people are paying for when they go with a King. By this adjustment, you can adjust how the shock responds to the big hits, the whoops, and unexpected terrain changes. This has terrific rebound dampening, terrific high-speed compression dampening, while also doing something magical in the low speed that gives you excellent comfort. A lot of people say nothing rides like a King, and once people really get into the King name, they stick there. But just to be fair, they don't have the adjustment capabilities that the Fox DSC does. This has specific low speed and high speed adjustment. This only has medium speed adjustment. The tuning within each individual shock can be custom ordered for you. The springs can be custom ordered for you. So essentially, this shock can ride identical to this shock if we wanted to make it that way. So a lot of the time, people are choosing the King because it looks beautiful, and it is a beautiful part. But don't be mistaken that a lot of these other shocks are either catching up or have bypassed what King is offering in their OE performance line. And when you're talking about $1,600 just for a pair of these shocks, you should really consider what else is available out there. Over here, we have the brand new Old Man Emu BP51. These have been out for about a year or two now, but the technology within them exceeds the rest of what all of these have. And that's because here we have a compression adjustment and we also have rebound adjustment. So this makes a significant difference because rebound is really what controls a lot of that harshness feel that we have over speed bumps, over washboard, over curbs, all of that kind of stuff. That jolt you feel is because the tire and the suspension is basically bottoming out from the suspension, tugging the chassis down. By controlling rebound, you control how fast that happens. And that pairs very well when you have adjustable coil spring collar that adjusts the ride height. So being able to fine tune how much preload is on the coil spring, how much energy is within that coil spring, and then pairing that up with the rebound really will make significant difference on your ride quality. Of course, that's going to take some testing, but you don't buy these level of shocks unless you're obsessed with ride quality and off-road performance. The BP51 means that this is a 51 millimeter bore piston. So it is not a true 2.5 inch shock like the rest of these. It is a 2.5 inch body, but the piston within is slightly smaller than something like the Bilstein 6112s or the Bilstein A100s, both of which have 60 millimeter pistons, so slightly bigger. Old Man Emu really is developed in all types of off-road scenarios and terrains. They are based out of Australia, so tons of washboard, a lot of unpredictable terrain. So they really know what they're doing when they're tuning shocks. These shocks are internal bypass, which means that within the shock itself are zones that essentially displace the oil past the main active piston. Combine that with compression adjustment, the rebound adjustment, and you really have the ultimate shock adjustment for not only your terrain, but your driving characteristics and what you're expecting out of your front shocks. These shocks and coilovers are perfect for the overlander, the people living out of their trucks, seeing a ton of dirt. They plan on having their truck and they're set up for a very long time. The sheer amount of adjustability in these shocks is some of the best that's available right now without going fully custom. You can get these custom tuned and special ordered, but right out of the box are some of the best setups that we've seen. We are heavily considering replacing our Icon setup with these BP51s. I want to hear your guys' vote. What should we put on the truck next? Kings, Old Man Emu, Bilstein 8100s? Such a hard choice, I know. If you guys had the option, what would you do? I want to hear in the comments. Last but not least is the Bilstein 8112 zone control height adjustable remote reservoir coilovers. By zone control, we basically mean there are 3 pistons within this single shock. There's the JCO, jounce cutoff secondary compression piston. There's the main 60mm piston, and then there's the rebound cutoff secondary valve piston. All of these basically work in conjunction with one another, basically under high impacts where the jounce cutoff system comes into play. It acts as its own internal hydraulic bump stop basically for max compression, and the rebound cutoff system acts to slow down that spring energy upon rebound. So when that shock shaft is coming out extremely fast after a G out or a jump, or just rebounding from a hard hit, that jounce or the rebound cutoff slows down the spring energy, slows down the shock, and basically catches your vehicle in a lot better manner. These coilovers are adjustable up to about 3.5 inches of lift. This is one of Bilstein's most technologically advanced shock they produced, especially for an OE application. So we are really excited about these shocks. We can't wait to test them on our own vehicle. Hopefully that's going to be super soon. Stay tuned for that. So there's a huge price range here when you're thinking about upgrading the shocks and coilovers on your truck. How often are you going to be off-road? How often are you going to be camping? Do you actually need a performance shock absorber for dirt roads, fire roads, camping? We got so much done on a basic set of Bilstein 5100s. We eventually upgraded to Fox 2.0 because we were spending a lot of time in the desert. We eventually upgraded to the Icon 2.5 with the CDCV adjustment because we were spending a lot of time in the desert. We were seeing a lot more mountains, a very wide range of gear on the front and the back of the truck. So a lot of things to really consider is, do you need to spend $3,000, $4,000 on a set of shocks when you can spend $2,000, have 95, 99% of the capability of the rest of these, but you could put money towards camping gear, time off work. These are all the things we kind of talk about with our customers is, rather than buying gear that's just going to sit on your truck and in the parking lot for most of the time, spend that money towards time off work. Spend that money on camping arrangements, better camping gear, other accessories that are really going to up the enjoyment of your vehicle and your time on the road. Because essentially that's what it is. We're spending a lot of times in our truck. We're driving all over the place. Even on vacations and trails, you're spending a lot of time in the truck, and you're paying a lot of attention to what that feels like, how comfortable it is for you, for your passengers, and essentially these products are protecting the rest of your vehicle from the harshness of the road, all of that road and dirt feedback. The better that you absorb all of that feedback from the dirt and the bad terrain, the better off the rest of your vehicle is by not rattling bolts loose, not basically rattling everything loose, which definitely happens. So I hope we've provided enough insight into all of these individual parts so that you guys can make a better decision. Of course, there are going to be way more specifics for your ride type or your consideration of the Fox 2.0 versus the Bilstein 6112. People are always bouncing back and forth between the King 2.5s and the Fox 2.5s. Like I said before, dual adjustment, better than single adjustment. They're about the same price, but people like the Kings because of how beautiful the parts are. The Icon 2.5s come in a lot of different variations. A lot of people like Icon because they're all-in-one kits, get you coil springs, the shocks, all of the hardware needed to basically set it up on your vehicle. There's no mixing and matching required. All right, guys, we covered a lot today for all these shocks. I hope we've given you enough information to make an informed buying decision with us. If not, please leave a question in the comments, give us a thumbs up, and hit that subscribe button because we got a lot more adventures and a lot more information coming your way.